In Saigon today, President Tu announced a new crackdown on drug traffic in Vietnam. The emergency legislation would make dealing in narcotics a wartime crime. It would order the death penalty for importers and peddlers who work for organized drug rings.
General Zhu, the American people have been told that you are an important man in the drug traffic in South Vietnam. Is this true?
It is not true. I deny completely that. I don't know about that. Since I am a child, until now, I don't know about it.
Have you ever had any connection at all with drug operations in Vietnam or Asia?
Not at all.
Top intelligence sources in Saigon have provided hard intelligence, quote unquote, deeply implicating General Zhu as one of the chief heroin traffickers in South Vietnam. I stand on that information. That documentation is in South Vietnam. But the point is that this information has been known now for 3 months. No action has been taken on it. It's time to move. Either we're going to move against heroin in South Vietnam, or we're not going to move against heroin in South Vietnam.
Work in New York. Sure, you see a big, even further uptick in drug usage and drug availability. A lot of them are vets are bringing their addiction home.
To keep myself going through the day in combat, I would get high. I would be under the influence of some type of drug, and I wouldn't feel fear.
I didn't want to really be there. I was afraid, I was lonely, homesick. I wanted to be home. Most of all, afraid. I was even afraid of returning home at one time because of my addiction. I was thinking of how am I going to get my fix when I arrive to the States.
Even though I did receive the Silver Star and Bronze Stars medals for valor, I was no hero.
To understand how the Vietnam War became the ultimate nexus of addiction corruption in Cold War politics, let's go back once again to the end of World War II and meet our old friends Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang anti-communist army.
Chiang Kai-shek reviews the armed forces of nationalist China on his island stronghold Formosa. Fighting units of the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps are lined up for the Generalissimo's annual Grand Review. Jeeps bring visiting military and naval dignitaries invited to watch. America's Vice Admiral Pride, commander of the 7th Fleet guarding Formosa, is among them.
As we get into the early 50s and really settle into the Cold War, the U.S. government feels that the weak point in the Southeast Asian defense against communist China is Burma. So the U.S. begins arming the anti-communist Chinese KMT army remnants in the so-called Shan State, which is a very mountainous, heavily jungled area, very remote and cut off from the rest of the world that sits between the borders of China, Burma, Laos, and Thailand. The Shan State was also one of the largest opium growing regions in the world. So how did the former French colonies in Southeast Asia become the heroin production center of the world? Thank the British. During the 1700s and 1800s, the British began selling massive quantities of Indian opium to China and the rest of Southeast Asia. Millions of addicts were created. Tens of thousands of opium dens existed in China, Burma, and Thailand, and Vietnam. The British made so much money off the opium trade that when the Chinese emperor began cutting off the heads of anyone selling the drug and attempted to arrest British officials involved in the trade, Britain sent out gunboats and troops and attacked China in 2 separate opium wars, forcing the Chinese royal court to allow the drug to be sold to their subjects.
Although she would be censured in the eyes of the world, the war enabled Britain to force a treaty, giving her the greatest port in the Far East, Hong Kong.
These are really the first drug wars, despite what you might have seen on the nightly news. Growing opium and smoking it spread south from China throughout the region, and even as World War II approached, the French colonial government's tax on opium still accounted for 15% of their total government revenue. After Japan surrendered to the Allies in 1945, communists took power in China. The American government backed the remnants of the anti-communists led by General Chiang Kai-shek. Communists quickly shut down opium and heroin production in China and brutally cracked down on organized crime, causing the entire Shanghai criminal underworld to relocate to the British colony of Hong Kong, taking their opium contacts and heroin production expertise with them. In 1950, the CIA purchased a bankrupt airline, used the fleet of planes to run weapons to the KMT in Shan province. The planes would return to Bangkok filled with opium. This operation became known as Air American. The KMT's main opium customer in Bangkok was a man named General Phao. Phao was the commander of the Thai National Police Force. He was also the CIA's man in Thailand. From Bangkok, the Thai National Police themselves often loaded raw opium onto boats, and from there it was escorted by the maritime police to rendezvous with large freighters bound for Singapore or Hong Kong to be processed into finished heroin and sent to the United States, usually via smuggling rings controlled by the same Corsican gangsters that were helped fighting the Viet Minh communists in Indochina. The volume of the CIA-facilitated Thai heroin industry was gigantic. In 1957, a Thai military leader named Sarit Thanarat seized control of the country in a CIA-backed coup. His cousin was the staunchly anti-communist king of Laos. When Field Marshal Sarit died in 1963, he'd amassed over $150 million, making him more than a billionaire in today's money. Chiang Kai-shek and the KMT went on to found the new nation of Taiwan, which could be considered the world's first narco state. The Kuomintang ruled Taiwan with an iron fist up through the 1980s, even killing anyone that dared speak against our ally Chiang Kai-shek. For the last 60 years, Taiwan has been one of the fastest growing economies in the world, with close trade ties to the United States, and today it's one of Asia's wealthiest countries.
Last year's Geneva Conference ended the war in Indochina, but it has not yet brought internal peace to that unhappy land.
While America's Chinese allies were turning themselves into the world's biggest drug manufacturers, revolution was brewing in the old French colony of Indochina. A radical student leader educated in Paris, a man named Ho Chi Minh, was leading the revolt against French rule. And then you go over to Vietnam and you have your first kind of tangency where the CIA...
Well, the case is really what gave me an incident, gave me an event, gave me a series of facts and things that happened to me that if I were testifying against CIA or testifying against the drug barons, so to speak, those people who are really, whether they know it or not, betraying this country, this gave me eyewitness testimony, and it begins on July 4th, 1971. And on July 4th, I was on what they call on-duty call for the hard narcotic smuggling unit of customs. I'm called, and they said, guy's been busted with heroin at the airport, JFK. Get out there. So we used to do something called controlled deliveries. Controlled deliveries means you had a red light and siren out there, get the guy to flip, tell you where he was going to deliver it, and you go with him. You deliver it. I get out to JFK, and I'm told this guy is a ex-GI from Vietnam who his passport says he made 7 trips from Bangkok in the last year or something like that. Yeah. I take a look at what I look at the goods, so to speak, the evidence. They've got 3 kilos of pure heroin, and a lot of heroin.
Because at that time, stuff's hitting the street at what, 5%?
Yeah, and this was pure. So you're talking about, I got the whole economics.
20 to 1 is 60 kilos on the street.
Yeah, 60 kilos.